The federal government is facing calls to expel the Russian ambassador if reports are confirmed that an Australian captured by Russian forces in Ukraine has been executed. Oscar Jenkins was fighting alongside Ukrainian soldiers last year when he was captured by Russia, with DFAT making urgent inquiries about his welfare.
The opposition says an execution would be a breach of international law and the government should respond in the strongest possible terms. Let's go straight to political reporter Evelyn Manfield at Parliament House. Evelyn, what are Australian authorities saying?
The Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade says it's urgently looking into this matter, and it comes after a report on 7 News last night said that according to Ukrainian sources, it's believed that Oscar Jenkins has been killed by Russian forces. So Mr Jenkins is 32. He's formerly a teacher in Melbourne, but recently has been fighting alongside Ukrainian forces. Now, DFAT does stress that it hasn't been able to verify this report yet, but that it does hold grave concerns for Mr Jenkins. Now, people might remember that a video did emerge of Mr Jenkins last month showing him captured and being interrogated and hit by Russian forces. That led authorities here in Australia to call in the Russian ambassador in Canberra for questioning. Now, that's happened a second time again on Monday, with Australian authorities trying to seek further information. Senior Government Minister Ed Husic addressed that earlier.
At the Foreign Minister's direction, have called in the ambassador from the Russian Federation to follow up on those inquiries, and also to remind the Russian Federation of their obligations under international humanitarian law, particularly around the treatment of prisoners of war.
Ed Husic there. Evelyn, the federal opposition wants a strong response to this. What are they calling for?
Simon Birmingham, who's the Shadow Foreign Affairs Minister, says if these reports are indeed true, he says that it would be appropriate to expel the Russian ambassador here in Australia from the country and also recall Australia's ambassador over in Russia. Now, we've heard from the Foreign Minister Penny Wong this morning. She says all options are on the table, but that so far Australia is just still seeking more detail to have this confirmed. And we have also reached out to the embassy here in Russia, but are yet to receive a response.
OK, Evelyn Manfield, thanks for the update.
Let's get to breaking news out of South Korea, where authorities have gathered outside the residency of impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol to make a second arrest attempt. North Asia correspondent James Ocean joins us now. James, what do we know?
Well, as you just mentioned, this will be the second time that police and authorities have tried to detain the impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol. This all comes from last month when Yoon Suk-yeol tried to impose martial law, even though he reversed it only 6 hours later because Parliament voted it down. The ripples from that decision are still very much being felt in South Korea. There are two things underway at the moment. First of all, there is the Constitutional Court, which is deciding whether or not the impeachment that Parliament passed on the President will be upheld. The second thing, and that's what we're seeing today, is the nation's anti-corruption watchdog is investigating Yoon Suk-yeol for insurrection, for abuse of power charges because of that martial law decree. Now, he was meant to turn up for questioning to answer questions in regards to those charges, but he refused to do so. He's been holed up and barricaded in his presidential compound. So that's where this arrest warrant comes from, that this anti-corruption watchdog says he needs to answer questions. They are looking at charging him, and so therefore police are trying to get into the compound. Now, here's the problem. Technically, Yoon Suk-yeol is still the president. He has no power at the moment, but he still technically is the president until the Constitutional Court rules otherwise. So he is in this compound and he has his personal protection guard, which are loyal to the president. He's still the president. On the other side are police who are trying to get in to execute this warrant. They've had this standoff before. There's real worry about violence erupting if police try and storm the barricade and the presidential guard push back. There's calls for peace, but at the moment the Presidential Guard is saying, well, we're not giving in. There are reports of very low morale. There are reports of mixed feelings within the Presidential Guard. But at the moment, what we're hearing now is that they're still refusing to let police in. And on top of all this is the protesters. There are thousands of protesters, both for and against the President. And those who are for the President are vowing to do everything they can to stop the police from arresting their President. And again, more concerns for violence if they refuse to let police through.
Thanks for the update, James. Now, with more of our top stories, here's Tom.
Thank you, Amelia, and good morning to you. A new report has revealed the huge cost increase facing parents sending a child to school in Australia's major cities. The latest data comes from Futurity Investment Group, which shows the cost for a child starting at a public school in 2025 has increased by around 33% compared to last year. But it's a different story in regional and remote Australia, where the cost has increased by just 1%. A teenage boy has died after being pulled from the water at a public lake about 50 kilometres east of Perth. Emergency services rushed to Lake Lashanaltia in Chidlow yesterday, responding to reports of a swimmer in distress, but the 17-year-old boy could not be saved. Queensland firefighters were forced to haul hoses up a 60-metre high staircase when a blaze erupted on top of grain silos. Emergency services responded to multiple 000 calls about the fire atop the Port of Mackay silos late yesterday. It took 6 fire units to bring the blaze under control. A major property data firm has declared that the rental market is well and truly past the peak of the recent rental boom. New figures from CoreLogic show rent price growth continued to slow in 2024. It comes after a post-pandemic surge. Prices still increased in 2024 by 4.8%, about half of the 8.1% climb we saw in 2023. And economists expect this slowdown to continue. The New South Wales public mental health system could be thrown into chaos next week, with hundreds of psychiatrists due to quit over a pay dispute. Around 200 psychiatrists working in the public sector have tendered their resignations after the state government denied them a 25% pay rise. The Doctors' Union says salaries in New South Wales are uncompetitive with the other states, but the Minns government says it can't afford the union's demands and has instead offered a 10.5% rise.
Thanks, Tom. Let's take a quick look at global markets now. The Dow has closed higher. It's up 0.5%. Our futures are pointing up as well. The Australian dollar has climbed ever so slightly, still very low though. It's now buying 61.89 US cent. Brent crude is down, but gold is pointing up.
And how about this for a tall tale? 2 baby giraffes born just days apart after Christmas have been caught on camera frolicking together at the Mogo Wildlife Park in New South Wales. The 2 calves are reportedly adjusting well to life in their new neck of the woods in the South Coast region. Oh, it's so nice to have some good news, isn't it?